There are women who've lived through everything, except a man who dares to speak to them with desire, without asking for permission. And you, if you keep being the typical nice guy, predictable and shy when you speak, you'll only arouse her tenderness, not her fire. An older woman isn't won over with flowers or respect. She's conquered with words that shake her, that push her to the edge between play and confession, that make her feel seen and wanted. But be careful. If you don't know what to say or when to stay silent, she'll read you as just another emotional amateur. And once that happens, there's no coming back. Today I'm going to give you 7 questions, not to make her fall in love, to make her obsessed, to make you that man who unsettles her and draws her in. And the last question, I'm warning you, isn't a trick. It's a trigger. If you use it right, she'll never forget you. I'm Celia, and if you're here, it's because you're tired of being the right man, the one everyone forgets. This is your house of wisdom. Stay, because after this video, you won't speak to an older woman like a boy asking for affection, but like the man she doesn't dare to turn down. Have you ever dared to ask a woman what part of her soul is hidden beneath her clothes without even touching her? If you haven't, then you've never truly had her in your hands. You're now at the first point of this video, and we're diving straight into the question that disarms any woman who's lived more than you, but hasn't felt more than you. What's the wildest thing you've never dared to tell a man? This isn't a decorative question, it's a precision bullet aimed at the heart of her hidden desire. Because every woman, especially an older woman, has something she's never said. Not out of shame, but out of fear. Fear that if she says it out loud, it becomes real. She stops playing the role of the proper lady and starts speaking from her body, from her shadow, from that corner where she hides what makes her tremble. And you, if you're the typical guy asking about her star sign, her hobbies, or how work went, you'll never reach that place. You'll stay on the surface, just like everyone else. Admired, but never chosen. Listen carefully. Once, during a session, a 48-year-old woman, elegant, mother of 2, married to a good provider, told me through tears that her deepest desire was never stability. It was to be dared. Celia, I used to dream of a man who would speak to me like he knew I had secrets too. That man never came. You know what she did? She started telling them to a guy 10 years younger. Not out of love, out of hunger. Because that guy with no money, no status, but full of boldness, asked her that exact question, not in a bar. He whispered it while she was complaining about her routine. And from that day on, she never looked at her husband with the same respect. Because a desire revealed outside the relationship breaks the relationship. You don't need to shout. You don't need brute strength. You just need to drop the right words at the exact right moment with the look of someone who won't judge her, but will absolutely use what she says. Because when a woman feels she can confess to you what she's never dared to say before, you're no longer just another man. You're her intimate danger, her emotional accomplice. And from there, there's no turning back. So don't hold back. Don't be lukewarm. Don't treat her like she's some fragile relic. Provoke her like you know there's a storm beneath her calm, and only a brave man can set it loose. If she confessed something to you that she's never told another man, it's not because she trusts you. It's because she's opening herself up to feel again. And that, in an older woman, is more dangerous than her naked body, because the body gives in on impulse. But the mind only surrenders when someone makes her remember. And that brings us to the second key point of this video, which is this question. What was the moment you felt most alive, and who were you with? This question isn't random, it's a key, a direct door into her emotional past, because every woman holds in her memory a moment, just one, where she felt life run through her like fire. Maybe it was with a fleeting lover, an ex who didn't know how to hold her, or even during a night when desire hit her with no logic. When you ask her that question, you're not just asking for a memory. You're triggering a contrast. You're making her look at her present and compare it to what once made her feel alive. And if you know how to hold that moment, if you don't interrupt her, if you don't correct her, if you just listen with the eyes of a man who isn't competing but analyzing, then she starts to see you differently. From deep psychology, we know that female desire isn't linear. It's not constant, it's associative, it's symbolic. A woman desires what reminds her of her most alive, most free, most out-of-control self. If you make her remember a moment like that, and then you act with the same energy that memory evokes, you become the emotional anchor of that desire. Even if she doesn't say it, even if she denies it. Because in her mind, you're no longer just another man. You're the one who reconnected her with her inner fire. Stoicism teaches us that the past isn't to be mourned, it's to be observed clearly. And that's what you're doing when you ask her this. You're not inviting her to cry over what's gone. You're inviting her to relive what she can feel again, if she dares, but not with just anyone, only with someone who looks at her without fear, someone who doesn't kneel, doesn't complain, doesn't over-explain, someone who takes her emotionally as if he already knows what needs to be awakened. So hear me well, this question isn't for the first date. It's not for breaking the ice, it's for when you've already noticed she looks at you differently. When her voice softens when you speak, when she dresses up just a little more because she knows she's going to see you. That's the moment, that's when you drop it, and be ready. Because if she answers, if she tells you that moment, if she names someone, a city, a night she's never been able to forget, then brother, she's not with you out of politeness anymore. She's with you because something inside her came back to life. And you were the one who lit the match. You've already seen how one single question can drag her back to her fire. But that's not enough if you stay on the sidelines afterward. Now is the moment where you become the trigger, not the memory. That's why we've arrived at the third point of this video, and here's where things begin to shift. Because the question that cuts through her like a silent knife is this: what part of you do you feel men no longer see? Think about it. An older woman may have experienced kids, a beautiful home, but so often she no longer has a gaze on her. No one really sees her anymore. Society starts treating her like a mother, a lady, a decorative figure. And when a man looks at her without desire, she begins to disappear. But if you show up and ask her this question, not as a compliment, but as intelligent provocation, you're hitting both her wound and her longing. Because what you're really saying, without saying it, is that you do see her, that your gaze isn't that of a grateful son or a polite friend. It's the gaze of a man who sees what she still has, and what no one else has dared to name. This strategy works for a deep psychological reason. Female desire gets activated when she feels truly witnessed. Not flattered, not pitied, witnessed. By someone who sees what's behind the makeup, the role, the disguise. And when you ask this question, she'll go silent, because she won't know whether to answer you truthfully or dodge it. But the crack is already open. And from that moment on, she starts seeing you as someone who might not just touch her body, but her self-worth. I remember a session once. A 52-year-old divorced man met a woman 7 years older. At first, they talked about books, politics, travel. Until one day, he told her without hesitation, "You have something no one sees anymore, and I don't understand how you don't notice it. Or maybe you do, and you're just hiding it." She went quiet. She left. But that night, she texted him, "What you said today made me cry, because it's true. I got used to not being seen. That man wasn't more attractive than others. He didn't have more money, but he became her only obsession for months. Why? Because he saw her, because he touched the exact place where she still longed to be found." Before we move on to the next points, take a second. If this video has already opened your eyes, hit that like button and subscribe right now. And tell me in the comments what country you're watching from. But don't write a long message, just type this: "I own the game." Because the next questions are even more powerful. And the last one might be the exact moment a woman stops seeing you as the nice guy and starts seeing you as the man she can't forget. When you learn to truly see her, when you touch the part of her no one else dared to notice, something shifts in the way she speaks to you. But also, if you're not fully awake, something might shift in you, and not in a good way. Because many men, once they see a woman start to open up, let their guard down. They soften, They confuse openness with intimacy and desire with romance. That's when they fall into the trap. That's why the fourth point in this video is a line that may sound provocative, but is actually a strategy. What's the hardest thing for you to let go of after a good, intimate encounter? This isn't a question meant to provoke a sexual confession. It's an emotional trap to see how she experiences desire. And the most common mistake men make here is asking to get instead of asking to observe. If you ask this question hoping she'll describe her favorite part of the act, you're reducing yourself to the level of teenagers. You've missed the point. This question isn't to arouse her. It's to shake her, to make her hear herself say out loud what part of her surrender still lingers, what gesture, what phrase, what silence stayed with her. Because the emotional imprint isn't in the act, it's in what lingers afterward. And if you know how to truly listen, you'll discover more than you ever imagined. Because many women have physical encounters, but almost none that leave them thinking. And if you place yourself as the man who understands that desire doesn't end in the body, then you stop being the guy chasing pleasure, and you become the man who leaves a mark. But here's the catch. When a man doesn't understand this, he starts using these questions like formulas. He thinks that if he says it in the perfect tone, she's his, and he's wrong. Because older women have seen too many men reciting memorized lines. What they haven't seen is a man who dares to sit in the silence after the question, who doesn't treat the answer as a key, but as a door that opens on its own. The danger of falling into this trap isn't just losing her interest, it's losing yourself, because you go from being a provocateur to being needy, and the needy don't seduce, they beg. And when a woman senses you're more focused on getting something than holding your center, all desire fades. Because now, you're no longer the man who moves her. You're the boy trying to be liked. So burn this into your mind. When you ask her what's hardest to let go of, don't use the voice of someone fishing for a steamy story. Use the eyes of someone who wants to understand her wound, her longing, her deepest memory. And then, stay silent. Because sometimes the most powerful thing isn't what she says. It's how long it takes her to say it. And if you can hold that silence, if you can resist the urge to interrupt, to explain, to react, then yes. Then you're no longer just a man asking a question. You're the one leading her to answer things she didn't even know she still carried. And for a woman, that's worth more than any touch. We've reached the fifth point in this video, and this is where many men unknowingly sabotage themselves through nostalgia. Because when you ask a woman, if you were 30 again, what would you do differently with men? You're not just asking for a story from her past, you're holding up a mirror to her regret. And if you know how to read that reflection, you don't discover you discover what she still wants. But here's where the mistake becomes a trap. Many men, upon hearing her answers, go into savior mode. They think that if she says she wasted time with the wrong man, then they must become the right one. They believe they need to redeem her, heal her, give her back the years she missed. And that's when they lose, because they stop being men of flesh and presence and turn into emotional projects. And no woman obsesses over a project, only over a presence that doesn't apologize, doesn't promise, and doesn't try to make up for anything. A man who doesn't try to be her redemption, but her temptation. Falling into this pattern of trying to fill the void of her past turns you into just another emotional provider. Another man trying to earn her affection through understanding. But understanding doesn't seduce. Desire isn't sparked by empathy. It's sparked by contrast, by direction, by boundaries. And if you place yourself as the guy who's going to make her feel young again, you're done. Because she doesn't need to be 30 again. She needs a man who sees her with the eyes of someone who doesn't imagine who she used to be, but who sees who she is now, ready to be touched with desire, not pity. The only way to flip this trap is to stop thinking about who she was and start acting from who you are. Not from her regret, but from your presence. Because a high-value man doesn't rebuild old stories. He creates new ones. He doesn't ask her what broke her. He shows her what can set her on fire again. But for that, you need a shift in mindset. You need to stop being the man who listens waiting for approval and become the one who observes to set the direction. And that hurts, because it means not rescuing her, not consoling her, not inviting her to reminisce. It means sometimes staying silent when she tells you how many years she wasted. And instead of saying, "I'm not like them," simply saying, "And you're not the same woman anymore." Then you look at her, steady, present, like a man who isn't trying to rewrite her past, but be her next contradiction. That's how you break the pattern, not with speeches, with presence, not with emotional understanding, but with unshakable desire. Because an older woman doesn't need someone who gets her. She needs someone who shakes her, again, without asking for permission. And if you're not willing to be that, you'll keep listening to her regrets while she dreams of someone else. If in the last point I showed you how to stop being the man who listens to her regrets and become the one who lights new contradictions, now we're going even deeper. Because even if you manage to stop being her emotional therapist, you can still fall into another trap, wanting to be the safe, stable, reliable man, the one who doesn't scare her. But an older woman doesn't crave stability. She craves something that makes her lose control. And that's why we've arrived at the 6th point in this video, where the question that shatters her mask is this: what kind of man scares you, but turns you on? At this point, you're no longer just talking, you're playing with fire, you're asking her to describe her shadow, to put into words what she's always wanted to experience, but never allowed herself to. Because every woman has an internal archetype of the man she desires but can't control. The one who doesn't ask for permission, the one who doesn't listen to please her, but to find her weak spot, the one who doesn't need to prove anything because his presence says it all. And that figure, that man she says scares her, isn't some adolescent fantasy. It's her real desire, buried under years of politeness, morals, and routine. Now picture this: you're with her, a quiet dinner, a light conversation, and you drop that question. She laughs, says she doesn't know, that she's never thought about it. Lie. She's thought about it 1,000 times. No one's ever dared to pull it out of her. And while she tries to answer you with soft words, her eyes are already lit. Because you just gave her permission to speak about her most forbidden desire. And you've just started to become that desire. Not by telling her what she wants to hear, but by being the only one bold enough to touch that part without flinching. But if you don't understand the depth of this, you'll fall back into the same mistake. You'll get excited. Start acting like that kind of man. Put on a costume, copy lines. Pretend to be tough, and she'll see right through it. Because an older woman isn't impressed by a rebellious boy's performance. She surrenders only to a masculinity that doesn't apologize. That doesn't seek approval, that doesn't try to show darkness, because it lives in it naturally. And if you're still stuck in the need to be accepted, to be liked, to fit her idea of a good man, you'll end up as her emotional friend. The one she talks to about the guy who actually makes her tremble, the one who's always there, for everything except turning her on. That's why this question isn't a game, it's a test. And only if you're ready to hold the image of that man, without apologizing, without explaining, without shrinking, will she start looking at you differently. She'll start wondering if you are that danger, if you are her fear and her desire. And from that moment on, there's no going back, because a woman can forget 1,000 conversations, but she will never forget the man who made her speak about what no one else dared to touch. If you were able to hold her shadow, if you didn't flinch when she told you about the kind of man who makes her tremble, you've already taken a step most never dare to take. But it's still not enough. Because seeing her is not the same as owning her emotionally. A woman can feel exposed in front of you. She can open up her deepest desires and still not give herself to you. Why? Because no one surrenders without first imagining what they might receive. And that's why we're at the 7th point of this video, the final question. One that isn't meant to get an answer, but to spark a transformation. What's something you wish a man would say to you, but none ever dared? This isn't a question, it's a mirror. One that exposes the emptiness of her past connections. One that forces her to realize that even though she's been surrounded by men, She's never truly been touched by words that made her lose control. And that's where you set yourself apart, because you're not asking from admiration. You're pushing her to imagine what she still hasn't lived. You're telling her, without saying it, that you could be that man, that you speak a language that doesn't come from what you've learned, but from what you feel. But be careful. If you ask this question hoping for a sweet phrase, a guide to please her, you've already lost. Because the real purpose of this line isn't to know what to say. It's to show her you're not like the others, that you're not chasing her approval, you're inviting her confession, that you're not flattering her, you're provoking her. Because desire isn't born from understanding, it's born from daring. And at this point, there are no more excuses. If you've made it this far, and you're still waiting for the right moment, still acting out of fear, still trying to be liked, then all of this was pointless. You don't need more lines. You don't need more techniques. You need presence, clarity, direction. Because the man she's waiting for isn't the one who listens the best. It's the one who doesn't need her permission to say what no one else ever dared. So end this video with one single truth. You decide whether you'll keep being the man who asks out of politeness or the one who provokes from truth. Because older women don't obsess over the one who's nice to them. They obsess over the one who sees all of them, the one who undresses them with words, and then stays silent, offering no explanation. Because he doesn't need to explain himself, he just holds the gaze. And that, only a man who's awake can do. Drop a comment now with one clear phrase, I provoke with wisdom, and tell me which country you're watching from. Because on this channel, age and accent don't matter. Only one thing does, whether you're ready to stop begging for attention and start stepping into your masculine power. I'm Celia, psychologist, woman, and the voice many men needed to hear when no one else had the courage to say it. This is your house of wisdom. We're not here to cry over what we've lost. We're here to reclaim what we can still become. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video with that friend who keeps waiting for a woman to choose him, without realizing the first person he needs to choose is himself. And don't go just yet. Watch the videos that are about to pop up on screen, because if this one shook you, the next might fully wake you up. The conversation doesn't end here. It's only just beginning. Still the nice, polite guy who tiptoes around older women and still gets forgotten? This video reveals the 7 exact questions that don't just awaken her desire. They force her to see you as the man no one else dared to be. We're not talking about shallow tricks or lines to impress. We're talking about real female psychology, mature desire, and what older women never confess, but deeply want to feel. If you're between 40 and 65, and you're ready to stop being invisible to women who've lived too much to be easily impressed, this is your moment. Learn how to use double meaning, how to touch her mind before her body, how to become the man she can't stop thinking about. This isn't a video about seduction, it's a video about provocation, about finally stepping out of the good guy role and becoming unforgettable.